Sounds like a plan.
All right, we're live now. Just let me, like I said, do a little small talk so this can get shared out there to every platform and people can come on here. Thank you guys again for doing this.
Thank you, buddy.
It was, yeah, it's my honor, man. It's my pleasure. I love doing these. I feel like it's part of my calling. Well, actually, I know it is. And you know, it's not like nobody really knows me and vice versa. But if you're willing to just kind of sit and talk with somebody and share stories, truth, you can build bonds really quickly. I feel like, you know what I mean? There's something you're going to share that's relatable to me, that's going to resonate and vice versa. And your guys' story is going to resonate to somebody out there listening. It's just, I feel like this is an obligation. Once Christ comes into your life, we have an obligation to tell people what he did for us that we weren't going to do. We were not going to do it on our own. I appreciate you guys sitting with me and sharing your stories with me today. Everybody that's coming on, this is David and Jahnna. Can I say your last names?
Yeah.
Because I know them. It just says David and Jahnna from Relentless Hope.
David and Jahnna.
Yeah. I was supposed to be a boy. They thought I was going to be a boy. I know it's tricky. It's okay. It's tricky.
It's Jahnna.
Jahnna, you got it.
I like that. This is David and Jahnna Cravens from Relentless Hope. They're going to be sharing their testimony with us today. I was hoping it was both of you. I've done one other married couple, and I love the dynamic of it. The wife had written a whole book on her husband's addiction and recovery journey, and he was on there as well. And it was just powerful. It's definitely something I'd like to do more of, getting that extra perspective. Who knows? David might be sharing something, and Jahnna will look at him and give the side eye. You correct each other, back each other up. So I thank you guys, man. And you got a Facebook and a group ministry called Relentless Hope. And there's some music involved as well, too. We'll be talking about that here in a little while. And another former Illinois guy. I didn't know that until he came on here.
My Illinois boy, man.
So, man, it's a pleasure. I'm going to go ahead and pray us in and give you guys that first question, and you just take it from there.
All right, brother.
Father God, all glory, all praise to you, Lord. You're the creator of all things, the writer to everyone's story, the great narrator of our lives. I just ask that you guide David and Jahnna's testimony today, their words, let them resonate with at least one person that's going to be watching this, if not every person that'll be watching it live later on. I just speak life over their testimony, Lord, and I just thank you for everything that you've done in my life and my friends and family's life. I ask that you for a hedge of protection over my family, my friends, David and Jahnna's friends, and everybody that they know back home. And just everybody that's going to be watching this, just keep guiding them to you, Lord. This world's getting crazier and crazier. So the only thing we really need to do is keep our eyes focused on you. And the way to do that is in that living word, Lord. That's the only truth that matters in the end. I say all this. I say this prayer in your mighty, beautiful, powerful Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Thank you guys so much for doing this once again. This is David and Jahnna on the spot, everybody. Yeah, I mean, the original question, that's not really a gotcha question. It's where I usually like to start all these. Growing up, childhood type of stuff, siblings, parents, the highlights or the lowlights of that. I'm asking, and all these questions are for both of you. So however you guys want to do that. So
I'll let you go first.
You go first.
Yeah, man. You know, I was born in Nashville, Tennessee. You know, to my mom, my dad, grew up, you know, put it in a nutshell, pretty violent background. You know what I mean? I didn't know it was. I thought domestic disputes and gunshots and stuff was normal, you know what I mean? And drinking and stuff. My dad was a hard worker, but you know, he was addicted to about everything, came from a long line of it. And then soon moved to Illinois, young age to Peoria. And then as my life went, I went from Peoria to Detroit, Indiana, Detroit, Peoria. That's kind of how wherever I was in trouble at, I'd get sent to the next place, you know what I mean? And so kind of went on, you know, started, you know, first time I ever really did drugs or drinking, I ended up in a coma, was pronounced dead like 3 times at 13. And then I followed it, man. Getting locked up, drinking drugs, locked up, drinking drugs. Had kids early, got married early, and but I come from, my mom got saved at a young age, and when I was young, and she divorced my dad and remarried, and she always served God, but she was young, and so my foundation, I knew who Jesus was, and I was in church, but then my home life, different things would be, you know what I mean? And me and my sister went through some crazy things and growing up, man. So a lot of stuff, man. I ended up getting, you know, touched in the way a boy shouldn't get touched at a young age, to keep it so we don't get blocked off nothing. But and it set me on a path of, I'm gonna be a womanizer and do as many things I can do with women and knock out anybody who tries to touch me. And that's how my life led, which led me in everything that the state of Illinois had to offer. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was in and out of jail, in and out of here, gone here, locked up here, in and out, in and out. And that was my life for many years. And then I ended up in Florida. But there's a lot in between that. But my mom did get saved, so there would be times that, later, like from 15, 16, I was in church a lot and had gotten saved and started writing music and doing Christian rap, and then I would go back out into the world and come back in. I had a real rocky relationship up and down. I didn't have a good foundation. I love Jesus. And then, as I started early on, I would always get told, man, you're so anointed. You're going to do great things for God. You're so anointed, to where the anointing of God scared me. You know what I'm saying? So,
Sure.
and then I couldn't, yes, I had deep convictions. Like, I used to see kids partying and drinking, and I'm like, how do they not feel bad about this? You know what I'm saying? Like, and I would feel bad because the Holy Spirit and the call of God was on my life. And so I was running from it. Right. What about you, Jahnna?
What about me? Hey, I was born in Fort Myers, Florida. I'm a native, but my dad was a Vietnam vet. My mom, I remember, she grew up as a Catholic, went to Catholic school, and I remember us going to Catholic churches and mass. And I think I was about 3 when my mom got saved, because my grandma was going to church. And I just remember it was like a different time in my life, because here my mom was trying to serve God and try to kind of cram, in a nice way, cram all this down my dad's throat, who was an alcoholic, a Vietnam vet. Obviously, he had some damage to him, and it just was kind of a weird household, because here was my mom trying to overly be religious, and then I had a father who was out, drinking beer all day in the garage and very angry and abusive. So I kind of took that on, being the middle child. I had an older sister, and I had a brother that was younger than me, about 18 months. So I kind of felt like I needed to protect him. So I kind of took a lot of things on as the middle child, which is pretty normal.
Sure.
I just kind of went down a path of going out, sneaking out pretty young. I was, tried to harm myself. I guess because I fell into that trap of believing what my dad was saying, that I would never amount to anything. So I went down the path of sneaking out, drinking, getting high. Of course, with that comes things, that happen to you, because I put myself in a place that I shouldn't have been at a certain time. So by the time I was 15, I got put in my first drug rehab. And I remember just, I was kind of eager to go, because I just felt so defeated. I was like, something's seriously wrong with me. So I went through that, and I graduated it. It was about a 1.5-year long program. And then for a little while I was okay. I was okay for a little while, but I think I still kind of wanted to go out and party and stuff. So by the time I was 17, I was going to clubs, had a fake ID. I had aspirations to go in the Navy. Well, that didn't happen, because I got pregnant, married real young, because that's what my mom wanted me to do. And in this time frame, my dad had gotten saved, which I think is super important, because he tried to make that right. Later on, we had really, really good discussions about how he was sorry and he should have never done those things or been that mean to me. And, I found out later that, as you grow up, you realize that your parents are just people too, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
realize that they're just trying to do the best they can do with what they have. And my dad, he was abused as well. So he kind of carried that on because that's what he knew. So that's what he did.
Generation.
Yeah. So, I got to rebuild a rapport with him in a relationship, and it became very important to me that I make him proud, because I feel like I had failed in so many aspects of my life. So, I got married young because my mom wanted me to marry. She said I was an embarrassment to the family. Of course, I didn't want to be an embarrassment to my dad. Really, I cared more about my dad than what my mom thought. But I got married young, and they say you marry your father. Well, this guy was an alcoholic. It was, almost like a repetitive thing. And I think sometimes because that's what in your life that you think you accept that, right?
It's still like an attraction to the familiarity. Even if it's
familiar.
A lot of discomfort there, it's still familiar.
Absolutely. It's familiar. So that took me down a road of he was in the PGA. He had got caught embezzling money. Long story short, I ended up having to go out and be an escort and a stripper. And then that took me down a whole nother, road of just drugs and craziness. So I ended up, after a bunch of craziness, I ended up coming back home to Florida. And after a little while, I put myself through Teen Challenge. And it was probably the best thing that could have ever happened to me, And I remember when I was young, my mom had always said, I wish you were old enough to go to Teen Challenge, and so to me, that was like a taboo word. I was like, oh, not Teen Challenge. But when it came time, when I was really ready and I really wanted God to change me, that's exactly where I went.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of great things about that institution, organization, program. I've never really heard anything negative from anybody about it. I'm sure there is with everything, but it's also like anything. It's what you make it and what your intentions are and doing anything.
That's it. I remember telling myself, I was like, if I want my kids, because I had 3 kids, if I want my kids to make anything of themselves, I need to set this example. I need to break these chains off of my kids of all these sins of my dad's dad and his dad, and I wanted to break that. So I wanted to complete it no matter what, and just like you said, it's all on where you're at in your head and what you want to accomplish. So there was I never gave myself an out. There was no, hey, I'm going to leave at this point in time if this doesn't happen. It was, I'm finishing it, and that's that, and that's what happened.
What was the after effect? I mean, like, what did you really gain from that? How that changed things going forward?
It really taught me a lot about myself, because at that point in time I had been on so many pills and all kinds of drugs, but I didn't know who Jahnna was anymore.
And this is back, just not to cut you off, but just so you know about pills, this is back in the pill mill day in Florida.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? When Oxys and Roxys were,
so your doctor,
it was a whole different world down here back then.
It was a very, very different world. So when I say addicted, I mean, I was a complete and total, I was like at the bottom of the bottom. So it really taught me who Jahnna was. It taught me Teen Challenge, programs are programs. You can get out of it what you want to get out of it. If you want to find God, then you're going to find God, right? If you want to go find drugs, you're going to find drugs. Well, I wanted to find God. I wanted to find some healing, and that's what I got. So it really taught me a lot about discipline, because we had work crews, we had Bible classes. So I was just all in, it really, it gave me a vision for my life and a perspective on, hey, I can do anything I want to, right? So I got to, when I graduated I got to be the first female who ever went into the police academy. And to me, that was like one of those things of, hey, I'm gonna push myself. I started working out. I started running. I was like, I want to be the opposite of what I was. I want to help people. And I thought that was probably a good way for me to do it. So I went through the police academy, and I was hardcore. Man. I wanted to beat the boys. Like you said, you're going to get out of it whatever you want to get out of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I remember I made some bad decisions because I was still learning, right? I was still learning how to be clean and to live sober, and life's gonna life and things are gonna happen. And I remember I let my younger daughter see her father, and it was a terrible decision I made because he went in the bathroom and shot up, and he came out and I knew exactly what he had done. And man, I beat myself up so bad for that. So I was like, I did all this work, and I took my daughter out of these situations, and now I just put her back into that. So I had a big exam the next day, and if you failed one exam in the police academy, you have to start all over. And I was like halfway through it. Well, I failed that test because I was just beating myself up. So once again, I was like, you know what? I'm putting myself back in. I'm still going to train until I can get back in, and I'm going to finish it. And I did. I went back in, finished it, graduated it, and it was back to just teaching myself, hey, you can do anything you put your mind to. Anything.
I'm starting to get this relentless hope thing because you were relentless with that. I mean, you would have had an excuse to give up and be like, oh, never mind, da 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 da. But
poor me, right? But no,
poor me.
No.
Why would
1,000 times over could have gave up.
Sure,
in
yeah.
many ways. One thing we don't operate in, and listen, her life's crazy and she's putting it in a nutshell. Mine is we ain't no victims over here, man.
No.
And
No.
and you don't get me wrong, trauma's real. Things happen, things affect your mindset, but like we don't let our kids, ain't no victims over here, man. You know what I mean? Like I think sometimes we give everybody, somebody be like, oh man, I'm battling demons. I'm like, no, you're battling bad choices, brother. You know what I'm saying? You're giving yourself an out. You know what I mean?
That's true.
And our life is no plan B. You know what I mean? Like it was all or nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you said that because every day I'm kind of learning some things, and a lot of it goes against like pretty long-standing beliefs of my own, but I'm letting them just wash away when I know something's real, opposed to what I've always thought. Like I would be so quick because you get into circles and certain groups and stuff, and it's like, oh, the devil's attacking me, it's the enemy. And then I start to think to myself, I'm like, well, the enemy's defeated. That's what the Bible says. And the Bible says to crucify your flesh daily. So I'm thinking the flesh is a bigger literal enemy to us than the devil. He just resists him, but to deny our flesh, that to me, that's my biggest battle. And I'm always quick to be like, oh, the devil's working overtime on me. Well, I'm just like eating the wrong food and not taking care of myself. Like,
that's it.
Maybe the devil's attacking me because I'm letting my flesh win, and so he's just attaching himself onto that. And it kind of lets me off the hook with self accountability. And we're giving the devil too much credit with that. Now he can definitely attack us, but a lot of the time, 90% of the time, I just think it's my I want to eat this. I don't want to do that today. I'm going to put this. That's just us.
Well, you said it, man. You said it. You crucify your flesh. There's two things in the Bible, two scriptures that Christians, people want to jump. It's crucify your flesh and renew your mind.
Yeah.
You got to do those two things daily. Hope without habits equals nothing. You can be in the most best church service in the morning, and you ever you see somebody go down front and week after week, and you're like, man, Bob's really trying, and then Bob goes back out, and then Bob comes in beat up again. That's because Bob don't get it from the basement to the attic, and you know what I mean. And so it's crucifying your flesh and renewing your mind, and you do those two things. Don't mean every day is going to be good, but something our pastor says, change your words, you'll change your life, and it's the story you tell yourself, bro. You know what I'm saying? And that's really where it starts.
It's a good way to really utilize our faith too, or putting our faith out in front of us and ahead of the day a little bit. Like I don't want to play catch up with my faith and be like, oh, now I'm in a bad spot that I wasn't prepared for. I'm like, oh man, I left my faith at home. I didn't, check anything. I didn't say a prayer before I left. You got to armor up in this world, man. But
daily.
That's it.
My whole thinking is like you could armor up 24/7, but if you're not crucifying your flesh, that flesh is still winning underneath that armor. Like I don't know how that works unless we're doing the crucifying of the flesh as best we can, daily. You can't just suit up and not go to work and clock in. You just got a uniform on. You're sitting at the house. It's not going to work.
Not going to do nothing.
You know what I mean? It's just like playing dress up. Yeah, you can't say, I got to put that armor on. But if you're not at least trying to crucify your flesh and deny yourself, I don't know how well that armor is going to work for you. And that's just me and my early experiences. I've failed that many times, but I'm like, okay, that wasn't the right thinking. Let me try it this way. This sounds like it makes more sense. I'm willing to like struggle and fail forward. You know what I mean? Like if I mess up, I'm not going to go back out there and be like, oh, well, this is just a better life no matter the mistakes I make. And doing interviews like this and hearing your guys' testimony, I mean, I benefit from it so much.
Well, we all do, man. That's how we grow off of each other, bro. You hear the word platform a lot. Everybody's got a platform, or hey, man, they're using their platform. Platform just means community, bro.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and so, your story helps us grow. Where you might be in 3rd grade in something, I might be in 9th grade. Where I might be in 7th grade, you might be in 11th grade. You know what I'm saying? That's why it's so important to unite and have people, like-minded people. We talked about that before we kicked on.
Yeah,
not everybody gets us. Like we're a wild card ministry, man, and we roll into the marriage group. Sometimes they're like, "Whoa, who are them people over there?" The Outlaws are back in town, but there's something in the Bible that God talks about, and it's the motive of your heart. You know what I'm saying? And that's, as long as you keep this right and this right, then everything's gonna be okay, man. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I love that. I hope I know my wife's in here listening and stuff like that. And I don't know how traditional we are, the Christian couple or whatnot, but I mean, we really try to just do everything as authentically as we can. And you got to be willing to be wrong once in a while. If you're going to be wrong about stuff, be truthfully wrong. Be willing to fail.
Not right.
How can you be right about everything?
But I've met a lot of lifelong Christians or whatever, and to each their own. But it's just like they look. It seems like one of their big motivators is just they're like fishing just to correct and to like teach, but from like a condescending kind of point of view.
Jesus, man.
I have 30 years of this, and let me tell you, and it's just teaching without love and compassion just falls on deaf ears. I don't like to have that.
Well, what happens is we forget there was one Jesus. Everybody else was disciples. Yeah. Okay, and so what happens is somebody gets saved and then they become Terminator Jesus. Yeah. You know what I mean? They forget that it took them this long to get past this. And some of them will tell you they're past it and be correcting you, and they ain't even living it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But I'm saying, so what I try to do is this, man. And doing the podcast we do, we got a pretty decent following. God's blessed us, and we don't, you can have ever how many subscribers. There's nothing like sitting at a table last night with 4 couples that are really putting in the work, and I'm seeing God move in real life time in their lives, But we could sit here and say this and say that, man. But at the end of the day, when I start to point out stuff that I see, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I've been in this music thing around Christian rap when it was illegal. Okay, you couldn't go to a church and just start rapping. They say you're sending people to hell. There was no YouTube, and now I've got this many followers. You had to flyer parking lots and mail them to youth groups, and you know what I mean. And nobody's writing your song for you in 10 minutes and releasing albums in a week. That ain't the real world. Back in my day, you had to go in a studio and pay the only studio in town and write your raps and all these things. And so I see all this movement going on in this recovery rap, and it's awesome. And Jesus is in it, and in 2026, one of my things was, David, you don't have to put yourself in every conversation of something that irritates you, whether you think it or not. I'm a peepaw, man. I got 4 grandkids, you know what I'm saying? 1 on the way. And I'm 52 years old. So, the other day, my buddy was like, what do you think about so-and-so? And I said, man, I'm gonna peepaw the situation. I'm gonna sit back. I ain't gonna go in and tell them what it is. I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna sit back and watch, you know what I mean? And give advice where it's needed. But what God has showed me in recovery, in marriage, in real life, and whatever the case may be is, if I focus on what Dave needs to change, I ain't got time to tell Trav what he needs to change. Because once I start focusing on Jesus, he goes, hey, Dave, you still need to work on your anger. You got to do this. You're doing this. I don't have time. I just can only focus on me. And don't get me wrong. There's obviously times we need to correct people and for the sake of the gospel and the harm it can do. But all this online bashing and iPhone preachers and you're doing it wrong. I don't got time for all that, and I do not get caught up in it, man.
I'm sorry, I got to write that one down.
Yeah, I know.
iPhone preachers. I mean, and God bless them. I mean, if you're using your iPhone and you're just reading that Bible and telling the gospel as it is, I mean, use what you can, because God could take anything, any platform, anybody's doing it and getting something out there. I just like that.
He's got a lot of catchy sayings.
Let me get into this a little bit, further with you. I got to go back to this, and it depends on how much you want to share. But I heard you say that coma at age 13, doing drugs for the first time.
I had acute alcohol poisoning. And I'll tell you, man, my mom actually.
The first time you drink?
Nah, I wasn't. It's probably the first time I drank. I maybe had drank some beers, you know what I mean?
Okay.
But I raked the yard and I got some money and I was trying to talk to this older girl and she had an older brother, you know what I mean, in the neighborhood and whatever. So we went there and man, I'm an all or nothing dude, bro. You know what I mean? I'm very competitive. So if you it wasn't good to be an addict and be competitive, because if you did 2, I did 4, you know what I mean? Type of deal. But you know the story. And so they were having a vodka drinking contest and I was gonna win. Ended up in a coma, man. And my mom was actually away from God at that time. She had kind of backslidden and got out of church. And it's funny, man, because I'll still see dudes to this day or talk to them, and they'll be like, "Remember when your mom was on her knees in the middle of the street praying?" But what happened was I was in a coma. My friends, which wasn't really my friends, they left me laying against a tree. And I lived in the neighborhood, so a lady looked out her window and see me laying against a tree and thought I was dead, and she called the police, and then they called the ambulance, and they got there and they went and got my mom, and they were like, David's up there, the ambulance, the police there. So she comes up there. Well, when she gets there, she's trying to get through and she's getting close to the ambulance, and they're like, we lost him. And they lost me 3 times, but my mom dropped to her knees and prayed and said, God, if you please save my son, I'll serve you for the rest of my days. And she did. And, lo and behold, I was in a coma for, I think 2 days or something like that. But I remember when I came out, it was right after Reagan and Bush or whatever the election was. Ronald Reagan was the president and George Bush was the new one, And the first question they asked me, I'm dating myself how old I am, but they asked me, who's the president? Who's the president? I'm like, Ronald Reagan. And they're like, I go, wait, no, George Bush, you know what I mean? The first Bush, the dad. And so anyway, and that was the first time. You think that would have scared me, but I've OD'd 2 other times after that later in life, and flipped cars, been shot at, everything you could think of it, you know what I mean, to risk my life, because I was on a slow suicidal mission, I believe, you know what I mean? I lived my life, I've been told my whole life, you either be dead or in prison, you won't make it to 20. If he lives to be 30, it'll do it. So I literally lived my life. Money, I've had so much money passed through my hands, I'd spend it because I'm like, spend it. You never know what's going. And I lived my life like that, dangerously lived my life. And anybody who knows me will tell you, you know what I mean? They used to say if there was a trophy for kicking it, Dave would get 2 of them. I'd drop people off, pick up another dude, and keep the thing going. They know me around those cities back there where you're at, man. But but really, I was a very angry hurt little boy that grew into a man with a good right hand, and it caused me a lot of problems. And it caused me to be a horrible father. It caused me to be a horrible husband. And it caused me to be a horrible person. I was very selfish. If I was around you for 5 minutes, I was trying to see what way I could get over on you. You know what I'm saying? Or how you could benefit me. And I lived my life like that for a lot of years, hurt a lot of people, hurt my older kids and my younger ones too, but really my older girls, you know what I mean? I have my oldest daughter's 33,
Is is there still some people today that crossed your path of destruction years ago that don't want to have anything to do with you still?
Oh yeah, man.
They
My
know of you
daughter,
now, but they don't.
my
They're like,
daughter's
no.
one of them. One of my
Yeah.
daughters. She don't have nothing to do with me, and that's stuff. See what in recovery, addiction, set free, whatever you. I'm a dude who believes whatever works for you work, and I'm not here to judge you. That's between you and Jesus, or you and your life to do whatever.
Yep.
But what happens is we get sober. You know what I mean? So, and Jahnna and I have been clean now 8 years. We were clean a little bit. We had some relapses and crazy, and all of our time we met. Jahnna and I met. Me and her ex were in jail together, and then we met. Drugs, being friends, and then this is all prior her going to Teen Challenge and all that. You know what I mean? So our story started before she went into Teen Challenge, and then when she got out of the program, is when we started talking, and then she went through the police academy, and I didn't want her to be a police officer, but I don't want to be a dream crusher either. But thank God that didn't work out. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of people that
she would have had her arrested eventually, but
yeah. Well, she would have. But there's a lot of people that I've done wrong that, just because you get clean, just because you work on your marriage, just because you're a good member of society and you're running a legit business, doesn't mean everybody's going to forgive you.
Nope.
You know what I'm saying? And what happens is, I think a lot of people, I've seen this, and a lot of dudes that I mentor and people that we do marriage stuff with, or guys, it's like they get in a program, whether it be faith-based or not, they get clean, they start thinking, and they're like, oh man, I'm this different guy. Then they can't understand why their kids don't want to have nothing to do with them. Well, their kids are still hurt. That's their healing, not yours, and so I've got a lot of people, man, in that state you live in right there, bro. I got a lot of people make fun of me every day that I'm the marriage guy. You know what I'm saying? But it don't stop what I'm doing, because you know what I mean. I'm doing it for the people that are listening and want to change. But and rightfully so, man. I'm like I told you, there's no victims over here, bro. Don't feel sorry for me. Anything's ever happened, because I take it on the chin, because I was a big boy that made those decisions, and I'm not, and neither is my wife. We're not people that blankets like, well, we serve Jesus now, and yeah, we serve Jesus, but you reap what you sow, bro. And there's relationships with kids that God restored, and there's some relationships that haven't. I can believe God going to restore it, and I pray He does. But if He doesn't, even if, I still got to go on and serve God and do what I do, and let them decide what they're going to do, man. And that's just chalk it up to the game, bro. You play silly games, you get silly prizes, and it's just the way it is.
It is, man. And I came to realize pretty, I don't know, maybe a year in, that like, just because, I'm sober and I'm in recovery, and even I got God-centered at the center of my life and everything, it doesn't guarantee that everybody else is going to get sober to you from your addictions. My recovery, it really has nothing to do with how somebody else is still going to think of me today. There are still people that hold grudges against me from 20 years ago.
And that's none of your business.
Probably will never change.
That's none of your business, right?
Even if I like, I was going to say something like Jesus related. I can do that. I mean, I could, be the next pope, and it still would be like, oh man, that Trav's on another one. And he ain't really. And
same thing.
We've given them reasons to feel like that, to think like
legitimate reasons, hurtful reasons.
And I can't let that become another thing I chase. It's like, now I'm going to make this an idol where I want to change everybody's opinions and views of me. Like I can't do that either. That's not my focus.
Well, that'll burn you out, and you'll never do it. You're putting unrealistic expectations on yourself, man.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
On the flip side of that, though, I've watched people that were just literally badasses, with him back in the day, now seeking him out, and they want marriage advice, and they want to do Bible studies. So I've seen the total reverse effect from that too, and I'm like, man, that's flipping awesome.
Right? Yeah. A lot of people. It took some years. Like you said too. In my life, as I told you when we were getting on, my foundation was rocky. I knew some Jesus. I knew all the right words. I could pray. I can give an altar call. I traveled and rapped with big names back in the day. I did all this, but I had a very foundation. So I was known to be, it all depends what Dave you're getting. Because, I'd be doing good, then have a relapse. And I'm an all or nothing guy. So I know dudes that would be doing this, and this, and up talking about Jesus. When I did it, I just quit everything, like MIA. You'd be like, where's Dave? Thought he was supposed to be rapping. They're like, we don't know where he's at, because I didn't want to be fake. You know what I mean? And it's time I should have really ran to God. So it took some years for people to even take me serious. You know what I'm saying? They're like, we're even my own children that God has worked to restore, and they didn't trust what John and I were saying. No. Our marriage was so toxic. If there was like most likely to succeed, we were like the most likely to kill each other. You know what I'm saying? Like that was like we were toxic, bro. Felony stops, windshields kicked in. It was violent, toxic stuff. And so it took, when we really changed our life and got some little 8-year-old Dave got taken care of, and 12-year-old Jahnna. When that happened, and we seeked out some Christian counseling, and we each got some things taken care of, and we started healing. It still took a good 5 years, bro, for people were still like, and the first 2 or 3, we were just trying to like, oh, now we got to feel again. Whoa, I don't want to talk about that, because the addiction or the drug, the porn, the food, fill in the blank, that's never the problem. It's the underlying issue that you're trying to get a hold of, the root. You know what I'm saying? If you don't get the root out, then it'll come in another form. You know what I'm saying? Or it'll come back again, So, now to see my older kids ask me for advice when it comes to relationships and set in our marriage class, or I'm having boys from back home that seen me do some of the craziest stuff. I'm mentoring them and send them devotions, and they're buying our stuff, and they're contacting me. Again, sometimes we'll focus. There's the ones, the naysayers. And, like you said, I could do a million good things and they would still say, Dave, so you don't got time. Okay. I always say this, what everybody's saying about me is really none of my business. You know what I'm saying? I don't get caught up in it. My son runs our social media. There's people that say things, we got 330 something thousand on YouTube. How can you be a marriage guy? You've been married. Anything you do, you're going to find it. If you're looking for it, you'll find it. If you go into a church and you're looking for bad praise and worship singers, you'll find them. You know what I'm saying?
But at the same time, the persecuted are blessed. If you weren't doing something and making some impact, then you wouldn't even have the naysayers.
Nobody's going to pay it.
Like if you weren't making a dent in something, nobody would be paying you no mind to say anything.
Well, here's the thing, man. And I got a buddy, and you think I've known him for 100 years. He's actually an Illinois boy too, but I met him in Florida, man. And he came into my life a year or so, almost a year ago or whatever. And we had the marriage group at his house last night. He said, if you told me this, that I'd be over here, have a bunch of crazy, wild Christians over here talking about marriage and not be drunk and giving people sodas, I had told you're crazy. But he's sitting next to me in church this morning, crying and going down front. Not somebody who knew Jesus. He didn't grow up in Sunday school. He didn't know. I'm watching God transform him. So when people take shots, or they say, why are you so, we get asked all the time, why are you so passionate about marriage? Why are you I'm passionate about marriage because my legacy of my kids and my grandkids will never know. They'll just know my peepaw was the marriage guy. That's all they'll know. And for there to come, that's why I'm passionate. I'm passionate for your family and your kids and your grandkids, because it all starts, we people spend time. Hey, if you want to go to Africa, that's amazing. I'd like to go over there too. If you want to have a homeless ministry, that's amazing. I like to feed the homeless too. If you want to do it. But listen, the most impact you have, Trav, are the people that see you every day, the ones who know the real you. My kids can tell you the real me. Oh, you think he's the hope guy? You didn't see him when he tried to rip the garage door off the other day, right? You see what I'm saying? So they're going to tell you the real stuff and what I'm living out. You want to see healthy kids, to have a healthy community, you have healthy marriages that have God first, and they do it. And listen, bro, I was the worst married guy you ever met in your life. Ever. But you know what? People say, well, how'd you guys get to this? And how'd you do? We were going to 2 different marriage counselors in 1 week. We'd sign up for any marriage thing. and anything, because here's what I knew. I knew I could walk in a place and share my testimony about drugs, being locked up, and give an altar call and do whatever. But I sucked at being a husband, and that's your first ministry if you're married, right? It's God, then your mate is your number one priority. So what I did was, hey, that's cool. I could get booked and go talk and do all this. I just want to learn this because nobody ever taught me how to be a husband. The things I've seen at 15, 16 years old, what you were supposed to do from women, from a biological father, I couldn't even imagine my kids, me telling my 16-year-old boy that, And so, fill it all in, drugs and all that all ran hand in hand in my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Every person has an assignment, man. If you think Satan's not real, he's not a devil running around with a pitchfork and horns. He has an assignment. He don't like Trav getting on here and talking about drug addiction and God changing their lives. Don't matter. Hey, he don't wake up in the morning and go, oh, Trav's got it all figured out with Jesus. I don't need to go bother him. He's like, hey, he may not have it all figured out, but he's trying to do damage. I got to get on him, right? And so, again, and some of it's our decisions, but there is a real devil that wants to kill, steal, and destroy your legacy and my legacy and whoever's out here watching legacy. And so he started at me from the very beginning, from my twin sister dying. All the rest of my life, I could tell you death, almost occurrence of, always coming. You have to cancel those assignments on your life, right? Yeah. Anyway.
He poured out right there.
Yeah, he did.
I get going, man.
Man, I had like 5 or 6 questions. Condolences. I don't want to get into that too much. I mean, your twin sister, when she passed away at 3, that was traumatic. So how old were you then?
No, I was when we were born, and she passed away, and I lived. And so from the beginning of my life from the beginning of my life of having problems to the reason that I ended up canceling the tour, I'm having those problems now later in life, right?
I mean, there was just a lot of tragedies, a lot of trauma, a lot of violence that you just absorbed, growing up.
Yeah.
And then all you heard was like, you ain't gonna amount to nothing. You're gonna be in jail. You're gonna do that. So you kind of took it on to like prove everybody right. Anything good that came your way, you were like, I'm not building.
I'm gonna mess it up anyway.
I mean, so there was no self-sabotage. You were just living a life of sabotage.
Yeah. I just stuck them labels, bro. I wore them proud, right? You call me white trash, I'm gonna be the best white trash dude you ever met. You know what I mean? And you call me this, I'm gonna do it. And I heard a lot of people, the term outlaw gets thrown around a lot, especially in this country rap genre we got going on. Everybody's an outlaw. You know what I mean? And we come from places, where you live at. That's where the outlaws started, right? You know what I mean? But the outlaws in my life was nothing but pain, man. I seen nothing but heartbreak, and me living my life as an outlaw, whether you want to be the outlaw that Tupac says or the outlaw Jesse James says. I broke kids' hearts. I broke my mom's. My mom's never done a drug in her life, but it caused her more hurt and pain than ever to me, and all this. So when we get serious about it and we go, man, it's like that whole glamorous of I'm a thug and I'm a tough guy and I do this and I this. It does nothing but break kids' hearts, breaks moms' hearts, and breaks wives' hearts, breaks communities, and you know what I mean? And so, that's why we wear the whole redeemed outlaw, man, because God redeemed us. An outlaw, we flipped it to where, we're an outlaw where we don't go against what the world says. Me and her sitting here, we're everything we shouldn't, everything they said we wouldn't, and everything they said we couldn't be. We're statistically should have been divorced the first year we got married. We were like 2 porcupines trying to hug each other. You know what I'm saying? Like we didn't know how to love, bro. We didn't know nothing about love, man. This relationship, that relationship. So why we do what we do, man, is because you get rescued. The reason why you're doing this, bro, is because you got rescued from the fire. So you're trying to go back to the fire and tell a story. Nothing changes people's lives like a real life transparent story, because then they can look at you and go, Trav's doing that? If he can do that, I know there's one of our main tags, and you'll see it all over our social media, and you probably see it all the time. It's not because we're special. It's because if we can do it, anybody can do it. You know what I'm saying? It ain't because we're special, It just takes
it's not a cliche. If there was any kind of special person, then they would have been doing everything on their own anyway. Like everybody needs Christ, and even a person's best life like they're just good people. They work, they supply, they they protect all that. I mean, that's decent. That's good stuff to be moral. You have morals and values. But if you're doing it all without God, it's bound to fall and fail eventually. It's still built on sand.
Empty.
That's
It's
it.
empty
And
work.
I mean, and the thing that I like about, I'm going to get into this because I really want to know how you guys met and everything.
Okay.
I'm going to go back to Jahnna on this one. You were saying earlier, I'm going to ask this question and set something else up. One of your biggest things, most important things was having your dad see you and being proud of you. Is he still with us? I didn't catch that if he was.
No, my dad passed, I think it's
3 years ago.
Yeah, 3 years ago now.
Well,
We lost him to the
Here's the big
virus,
question.
but he had a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, but you've been sober for 8 years, so
Yeah.
Yes,
And he
no.
was just
Yeah.
not to cut you off, but my father-in-law, what she says how he was, I never knew him like that. My father-in-law was my best friend. You see what I'm saying? And
Sure.
but yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead. So go ahead. The last card he gave us
Yeah.
after we gotten.
Like I had previously said, it was always important for me to make him proud, so my dad, it made me have a really huge sense of peace that he didn't have to worry about us anymore, and he absolutely loved David, and he just didn't understand why, we would fall back, and like we'd work so hard and then we'd fall back, and of course it was because there were some places that weren't healed yet. So once we started getting counseling and going to all these marriage retreats and dealing with little Dave and little Jahnna, then we could, push forward, because you have to get to the root of that problem. So he got to see us on a totally different level. My dad would come over to, we're big UFC fans. He would come over to fight parties. We would go take him for airboat tours.
I love car racing. He loves stock car racing. So we go and one of the last things, and he was one, because when John and I got together, I'll never forget the first time she ever took me over there to eat. He said,
this was at Easter.
Yeah, it was Easter. He said, "What do you do for a living, boy?" And he kind of looked at me, and I said, "I move pool tables for a living." He said, "Is that a thing?" I said, "You'd be surprised, you know what a thing it is." And then fast forward, before he passed, he'd be like, "My son-in-law is the best pool table mover. He's a strapping. He'll come in here and lift it, but we were doing real good, and then we had me and him was really close, because one thing about me, and anybody knows me knows, you get what you see, bro. I'm not on here trying to fool you to like me. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't. There's enough of that. There's enough of that. Half the songs you're hearing ain't even really them people. You know what I'm saying? Like, I ain't trying to be mean, but it's just an era we live in. You know what I mean? And we're all, using this to put, everybody's writing a book, and that's awesome, and everybody's doing it. So there's so much content and so much things, and what's real, and what you see is what you get with us, and some people like us, some people don't. Either way, we love Jesus, and we'll see you later. But my father-in-law, I never went in and tried to fool him to like me. He got he knew who I was. He would just look at me and shake his head sometimes. He thought I was crazy, but we were really close. And then John and I had, we filed for divorce, or we had divorce papers drawn up twice early on in our marriage. And because, she got out of the program, we were dating, and then I was trying to get clean, and then we started going to church, and everybody's like, "You guys are going to be a power couple, change the world, got power couple." And I'm like, power couple's having a couple outages, you know what I mean? Like, and because I had little babies and she had young kids, and we're like trying to figure this out. Now we're clean, and I'm not going to give you as much trust as the last person, but you better do better. You know what I mean? And it was crazy. Nobody taught us that. No couple said, "Hey, let me tell you guys, coming out of addiction, that you're going to have to deal with this in marriage." That's why we do what we do. But my father-in-law, we got real tight at the beginning. So when we fell and had a relapse, and the fighting and the violence and the craziness, it hurt him, and he was mad at me. It was this little girl, whether she was beating the heck out of me or not, but it was his girl, his baby girl. And so it took him a good 2 years before he really
back to that. You got to walk it out.
Yeah, we had to walk it out, and he was coming back around, but he didn't trust us. You know what I'm saying? Like, the bottom could drop out, at any time. and so one of the last cards he gave us, I don't know if it was on our birthday or what was it for? What it was, but I mean, after the 5 years we spent, the 4 years together all the time, our relationship was amazing. But he wrote my in-laws are super good on writing out cards. You know what I'm saying? Like my family's like, love you. You can't even read it. We're like, love you, Dave. I bought this card on the way here, but,
My parents wrote
their parents will write books, you know what I mean? And so he wrote on there, it gives me joy that I've never seen two people bounce back like you guys did. And it was right before we were going on our first tour, rapping to go on the road, you know what I mean? And tell people, that was like 3 or 4 years in being clean. But, and so, he got to see us when he went, when the time went, went to see him and, at the hospital, and he was so proud of us, man. So, he got to see
He got to see me graduate Teen Challenge. He got to see me graduate the police academy. He got to be, there when we got married.
He'd come and watch us rap.
Yeah, he'd come and watch us rap. He even got to do a pool table.
Yeah,
David and I own pool table companies, and he even got to do a special one.
A veterans
that was
pool table in
the paper, for a vet. And he was just really in awe, the David, because we started just working, just him and I was carrying the pool tables and doing all the stuff. And he was like, man, you guys are really doing it.
We just bounced back, bro. We really, when I tell you we locked in and said, listen,
100%.
and a lot of people said we wouldn't make it.
Yeah.
And this is why, lest you think you stand, you fall. Right. The Bible says, never. We said something earlier, there might be a guy that's 7 days clean, 1 day clean, 30 days clean, 2 years clean. I don't care if you got 20 years in, 30 years, 40 years, 10 years. Lest you think you stand, you can fall. If you're a human being, something can happen. You know what I'm saying? And so, we try not to put no judgment on nobody. I mean, you got to hold people to a standard, though, because nowadays Jesus is adjacent. Everybody's a Christian. Everybody loves Jesus. Everybody, and that's awesome. I love Jesus is being talked about, but it's almost like he's a fad right now. Again, you know what I'm saying? And so when we change our life and Jesus becomes, I'm not talking about following Jesus. I'm talking about Jesus the Lord. You know what I mean? Of your life. One thing to follow Jesus, yeah, but when he's the Lord, things start changing. You can't help but change when you really start following. You don't do the same thing. You don't act the same thing. You don't treat people the same way. You know, all these things. So he really got to see us change. And the thing was, our families were, my mom and Lorenzo was living with us in our pool house. This is before Hurricane Ian, because we lost everything in Hurricane Ian, our house and everything. But my parents lived there, and then my mother-in-law and father-in-law. So we were we had a good solid 2 years of just sober family, what we call a normal life. You know what I mean? Like, it was a normal life. So it was good to the parents to get to see that and everything.
I'm glad that that story ended well, where he came around to liking you and trusting you again.
Yeah.
He was pretty happy and content, and got to see you guys, succeed. I think that's pretty awesome. I want to know, like the bulk of this marriage, what. I have so many questions. Let me just ask it like this: I want to know where you guys met and what the circumstances was. What was it that kept you guys wanting to keep trying? Obviously love and everything like that, but I mean, what was there? Was you guys both using it at certain points? I mean, take us through the highs and lows of the relationship journey.
The first purpose of our marriage is to honor God, to honor each other, and to keep our family safe and honor it. So that's the whole purpose of our marriage. And I think every marriage should have a mission statement and a purpose. And but I was in the county jail, and I'd gotten a little altercation, ended up in the county jail, and her ex, they were just in a bad state, man, pills and all of it. He ended up in jail when I was in jail, and we were like the only two white dudes in there, and I'd already been in there. I'm in there in my cell sleeping. He's like, "Can I sleep in here, man?" And I'm like, if you want, bro, but you have to be quiet. You talk too much, And so we got to talking. Well, at that time, I had not been in jail for a long time, and I'd never been in jail in Florida. I'd only been in Illinois. You know what I mean? Like in Illinois, we don't have bondsmen. The state acts as the bondsman. I don't have to call a bondsman. I need my sister to come and put some money up here and get me out. And in Florida, you have to have bondsmen. So, I only time I'd really ever been locked up was in Illinois. So I knew how that system worked. And so I had been in Florida only for simple time. I hadn't been here too long. Anyway, so me and him, started talking. I was like, man, I can't believe I'm in jail, man. I was 2 months ago or whatever, 6 months ago, I was in Illinois rapping for Jesus, man. What happened here? And moved to Florida. I ain't got no covering and he's like, yeah, man, I'm a Christian too. And I love him, man. Well, I got none. I talk to him still to this day, but he, I said, when I get out of here, I'm going to a church. I don't care where it is. I'm going to a church. And he goes, man, there's this good church over at Fort Myers High School. And I was like, I'm going to go there. Now, I never really remembered his name or talked to him. Jail's not always the best place you want to meet friends. You know what I'm saying? Even though I've met some good ones there, but, you usually don't want to. So when I left there, I forgot his name. I bonded out, whatever. I didn't think nothing else about it. The following week, I'm walking through that church auditorium because I did what I said I was going to do. And I hear somebody say, David. It says my full name, not just my first name. It's like, David Cravens. And I turn around, and it was him and Jahnna and my daughter, Adriana, my stepdaughter, but she's my daughter, too. But and another thing, we've got 8 kids between us, and we don't call nobody steps. There's no step kids. They're our kids, man. And that's a whole nother thing that nobody taught us about blended family either. And that's another reason why we do what we do. But so he come in walking in, and that was the first time I ever seen Jahnna, and I couldn't stand her. I couldn't. I was like, somebody needs to smack that girl. She thinks she's tough, And but come to find out later on, I thought she was hot, but I'm like, man, that girl's got an attitude. They were so knee deep in their addiction and pill sick and dope sick, and man, I drank moonshine and snorted cocaine, bro. I didn't understand about nodding out. Like, I'm trying to stay up. I didn't get the whole downer. That wasn't a cool thing. You know what I mean? My addiction was different than theirs, so I thought, I work all week, buy my drugs. These people got problems, but you know what I mean? But I had just obviously as many problems. But anyway, fast forward, we always make a joke. I took them out to eat that day, and I've never stopped taking her out to eat since. You know what I mean? But Jahnna will tell you a lot of times people hear this story, and if they don't hear it all, they think like I hit on her. Me and Jahnna were friends for 2 or 3 years ever. And that later came back to hurt our marriage because she knew everything about me because she was my homegirl and vice versa, right? With other people, whatever. So but I learned early on, and no shade to him. He got out of a program, and I think he's doing good now. But, I remember sitting on my back porch, and Jahnna was just a cool girl, and we're talking, and he's there, and he's talking about aliens. I'm like, I don't know, this guy drives me nuts, and over here, and I remember God telling me, even though I wasn't walking where I needed to be, if she can get away from him, she'll be okay. And there's something special about it. Not trying to hit on her. And she'll tell you, I never hit on her one time when she was in the worst thing of her addiction. I never went out of my way. If me and her rode in the car alone, we were just friends. You know what I'm saying? And I was going through my own thing, a divorce and stuff at that time. And, but I knew if she got away from him, they were toxic for each other when it came to drugs. You know what I'm saying? And pills and stuff. And anyway, she ended up getting away from him. We stayed friends. She went into Teen Challenge. I had custody of 2 little babies, my 2 kids. You know what I mean? I'm moving pool tables. Again, man, I always thought my drug habit was okay because I worked every day. So I went to work and then snorted an 8-ball at night. You know what I'm saying? And then I went to work, and I'm like, boy, you can work, but boy, when it's time to party, it's time to party. You know what I mean? And then you work and you party, and then, you got kids. And so I never looked at myself like other people. I guess I thought I was better than them. I hate to say it, but nobody snorts an 8-ball a day and it ends good. You know what I mean? But, well, when Jahnna got in Teen Challenge, I was with her the night before, and I said, hey, I believe in you. You can do this. And all the whole time she was in Teen Challenge, we would run into each other. Like, Teen Challenge does car washes all the time, and I'd pull up like at this car wash, and my work truck would be smoking. And it was always like when I wasn't the best guy. I'm like, you piece of junk, mother crap. And I'd be hitting my truck and I'd look over and there'd be Jahnna and all these church girls like, hi. And I'd be like, hey. And then I would see her. It was just crazy. And I'd be like, hey, I'm proud of you. And she's like, I've got X amount more months and I'll be getting out. And then when she was, getting to that part of the program, we just became really good friends. She was helping me with the kids. And it went on a good 6 or 8 months. We were like friends, but I knew we kind of liked her. And then she went on a date or something with somebody, man. And I was sick, bro. And I was like, man, and then I told her, I said, I think I love you and I want to be with you for the rest of my life. She's like, what took you so long? And because I really kind of thought, hey, she's not going to want to be with me and I'm crazy, and I don't want to bring her in my crazy life and my 2 little kids and shit. But anyway, man, so that's all of it in a nutshell. So we got together, we got moved in quick, got married quick. Nothing that I suggest to anybody, especially if they're just getting clean, especially if they've just getting saved or they're just doing something. Totally not the way to do it. Because even though we love Jesus and she had been in, there was a lot of healing that needed to be done. You know what I mean? We both walked in with airline bags, bro, like, and this, and you don't yell at my kids, and your kid wrote on the wall, and your kid's a brat, and yours, mine, and
just because I had graduated a program, my kids still had a lot of hurt. They still had a lot of pain. So I was walking in shame and guilt, because of all the drugs and the situations that I put them in. So I was overly trying to be the best mom I could be, like just because you go through a program, nobody teaches you these things. It's like you have to get out and then you're like, oh man, yeah, this kid's mad at me and this kid's mad at me. And, they had to go elsewhere with my parents for a year. So, there was a lot of healing that needed to be done. And it was hard for me to understand that David was my number one human relationship. Right. And not only that, but from the things that I've been through, I never had a relationship where somebody actually genuinely loved me, and loved me and really cared about me. So with David, it was like I was very careful with him because I didn't believe that he really loved me, or I didn't trust him with, my kids' hearts. It's like I knew something was very special about David, and I knew that I really loved David. I just was having a problem, just with the guilt and the shame and trusting him with my kids.
Yeah.
That makes sense, because if you got all these internal emotions and things to deal with, I mean, you can't really gauge how much you should trust the other person, or like what's my feelings really consist of? Like, where's the substance to it? Because you're getting, if you're filled with a lot of negative baggage and emotions and feelings and pitfalls and unhealed things, trauma, that has to pour out so all the good stuff has a place to settle, to pour in. If you have like a cup full of negative stuff and a cup full of positive, and you pour it on the cup full of negative stuff, not much positive stuff's going to get in that cup.
No.
Empty out first. That's why I think I'm going to just throw this in there, because I think you guys, this can be a bigger topic. I don't think I want to talk about it here, but I think that for addicts, especially coming out of addiction, trying to get clean, maybe getting some faith-based stuff going, however, in God's timing, that eventually deliverance is a huge essential part for any addict, especially who has trauma, molestation, stuff like that. Like you were talking about the roots. You get a lot of stuff on the surface clean and healed, 90% of it, but that 10% will still wreck everything. And that 10% is usually attached to those roots. That's where deliverance really needs to come in. And I don't think there's a bunch of recovery talk or anything that really puts that in there, because people get real scared of that. But I think it's an absolutely necessary thing, and I hope to talk about it more as time goes by. Because there's just some things, like if I sit in front of a counselor and they're like, okay, tell me about some of these root problems, I'm like, it's been 40 years. I'm not going to be able to recall it all, and you have to get specific. And the only person that knows specifically everything is God. And that's what he needs. You need other people that God has anointed that will know you and know right what to ask you to get to that root, to get delivered. And it's not a one-time thing, but I just want to throw that in there because I think you guys have experienced that. I would ask you that, but I know it would take forever to like go through it.
Yeah, we'd be here all day, but it's a journey of spiritual healing.
Absolutely.
And it can take, some people move fast in it, some people move slow, some stuff you revisit. And like I said, not to get into it, something we can talk later, but it's some stuff that has to be prayed and broke off your life and walked out, man, and forgiveness. There's sometimes you're holding on to something that's staying on to you. It might be writing your dad who's already passed a letter. Like, hey, man, I always blamed you for this and whatever. And I'm just using it for example, but spiritual healing, it's skipped over as a prayer, and it's a lot more work than that. Again, you hear us referring to little Dave and little Jahnna.
Yeah.
And a lot, that's the spiritual healing. There's a book and a ministry, Word of Life, Pastor Gasper and Michelle Anastasi. Besides Jesus, our marriage wouldn't be together if it wasn't for them two. They seen us at our worst and never gave up on us. But they wrote a book called Stop Hurting, Start Healing. And they do. That's what they do. And one of our daughters, Brianna, and our son-in-law, Mike, are in that program now. They're all going to graduate. They've been in there a year. They were both hooked on fentanyl. And, but they're in there, and they've been going through that spiritual healing journey, man. And so we're so proud of them and thankful for that ministry. But you're dead on, man. That's why, if you don't get to the root, you ain't always going to see good fruit. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, it's just the way it is.
Deliverance and canceling assignments.
Yep. Cancel them assignments on your family, bro, daily. Daily.
It's a big deal, and I think it can scare off a lot of people. And
It does. And they got to be ready. They got to be ready for it, bro.
Yeah,
if you're not ready for it, you're just wasting time. I mean, I ain't saying that. This is all a journey, and we're all in it together, bro. And we're at different places. So I commend anybody that's been sober, that woke up and stayed sober and clean today. And it's easy to sit there and get Christian on them and be like, you're set free and you're not believing enough. And I skip all that. I don't believe that. I don't say that to nobody, and that's not how I live my life. And it didn't work for me that way.
No,
maybe some people say one prayer and then everything changes, and that can work. But again, hope without habits equals nothing. Yes, Jesus changed my life, and yes, don't get it twisted. I'm not a motivational speaker. Jesus changed our life, but like marriage, like recovery, it's made every day. I'm going to wake up tomorrow, and you know what? I don't wake up every day and kick the door down and start shooting hope bullets in my boxers. You know what I'm saying? Like there's some days I'm like, oh Lord, like we're dealing with real life situations like everybody is. You know what I'm saying? Like we got stuff going on now, man. You know what I mean? But the thing is, it's that healing makes a difference. But that's a whole nother show, Trav.
It is. It's a big topic, and it's definitely one I want to like talk with others about. Moving forward, because I just think it's essential. God put that on my heart. A lot of stuff that I was still dealing with, and a lot of the reasons why I would keep using and keep relapsing was because of things tied to my childhood.
What it is, brother. Me too.
But I can only talk about it as much as I can kind of remember, because a lot of things get suppressed. So things can't get healed and removed until like the completion of the whole story. Like bits and pieces is fine, but like the devil only needs just a little cracker or a kink in that armor, man. And like you could be going along for years, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, living good, working, things are decent. Then something happens, maybe a movie, maybe a song or something. Somebody says something, and that just opens that trigger to something happened at 8 years old, and then the car broke down, and then it's just like
then it's a whole thing. And Satan knows that you can just crack the door and he'll kick that sucker open. You know what I mean? It's kind of like I got a scar on my leg where a piece of pool table slate broke and cut me to the bone, and I hit that on a trailer hitch the other day, and guess what it brought back, buddy? Every bit of that pain that I had. And that's what happens in our life. Again, until I started talking about things that happened to me at 8 years old, told Jahnna, started telling people, because I used to share my testimony. I'll tell you about being in jail. I'll tell you about drugs. But this over here, we don't talk about that. That's not cool what that guy did to me. That's not cool at all, right? And what that did was, if you own 4 condos, right? and Jesus owns 3 of them, and Satan owns 1. You know, you can't sell that whole piece of property unless Satan signs on, because you only own 3. You can't sell the whole condos, right?
I like that.
Same thing in your life. If you gave Jesus this, and this, and Satan still has real estate, that's when you come back around the mountain. That's why people couldn't understand, how does David have a Christian rap record deal? How does he have this? And he just relapsed, and we ain't seen him for 2 weeks. And then he beat up the neighbor and broke his window and hit him with a brick for no reason, right? Like, they didn't understand, because what would happen is exactly what you're talking about. It would do something, and it would kick it off in me. And then I would let Satan get in my mind and be like, boy, don't let them find this out. And you're a fraud. And then I'm like, might as well, let's roll. I did it, right? And that was my pattern in life. Round, do good for 6 months, or round, until I got a hold of the roots, buddy. And I'd love to sit on here and tell you that every one of we had counselors fire us. Dude, we had marriage counselors say, you guys might as well get divorced or kill each other, because it ain't going to work. Yeah. And that's the truth. One time we went in there and we started arguing and throwing chairs, and he was like, here, call this number. You know what I mean?
I'll never forget. Yeah, he goes, I cannot help you too. And I was like,
but you know what?
Can't even help us.
But we finally found one that could. And you know why we're sitting on here? 2 yahoos that'll travel and go tell people about marriage and take the time, because somebody took the time to tell us, and they believed in us. And you know what? There's people out there that people counted off and they don't believe in, and they maybe have been around that mountain the whole time. You know how many people that know me my whole life go, there he goes again. Yeah, there he goes again. Dave's a good dude. He'll make you laugh, but he might try to fight you later. We don't know, right? And until I got down and got a hold of that little thing inside of me that I would not talk about, I would not tell nobody about, that I forgot about, that I suppressed. And when they got it out, Trav, buddy, I can tell you, you know how when they say the truth will set you free, there was a sense of freedom once I started dealing with that and talking about it. Still, hey, finally wrote a song about it last year. Broke down, cried when I finally finished it. But I finally wrote a song about it and got it out, right? And did it. But it took a process. Wasn't a prayer like, oh, Jesus set you free and see you later. Sometimes that works. Sometimes you got to go. You got to put in the work, man. You know, pray like it's up to him, work like it's up to you. You know what I mean? That's how it works.
Man, you got good slogans. I'm still in all these, man. It's like you rap or something. You put some lyrics together. Can I find that song that you're talking about?
Yeah, I'll send it to you when we get off. It's called "Time Machine" is the name of the song. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, this is a big topic here. I don't want to. I have so many more things I want to say, but this is your guys' testimony, not just about that. But I mean, you're absolutely right, man. And I'd love to have some conversations with you guys about it.
Nah, bro, we're family now, bro. We're down, and hey, we'll have you on our podcast too, bro. And you know what I mean, and talk. You know what I mean. You and your wife both, man. You know what I mean.
Yeah, Deb's a little more camera shy, but she
we'll get you on there, Deb.
Nice to meet you.
Her story, I mean, to this day, I mean, her story that I've gotten to know over these last 13 years, it's tremendous, and I know that she's meant to share it in its entirety someday. It's beautiful, but she's stubborn in a beautiful way.
Yeah,
I love her. Let me get into this. Since you guys do this marriage counseling type of deal, whatever you guys want to call it, let me ask some questions specifically about, possibly helping some other people out there in some relationships. What are some ways you guys make each other on a consistent basis feel safe, respected, and supported?
Well, you want to go? Yeah. Well, a man's number one need in life is to be respected. A woman's number one thing is to feel secure. And we're big. Matter of fact, we opened up the mailbox and had a card from XO Marriage. We're big XO Marriage people. Yeah. Jimmy Evans, he's the GOAT of preaching. He's changed our life, his messages, and got a chance to meet him, and him signed the book. And we just released a book called The Redeemed Outlaw Devotional by Helping. But the 4 laws of love to keep each other our marriage made every day is priority. Your mate has to be priority. Your mate, you have to pursue them. You have to have a partnership, and you have to be pure. And you add those 4 laws, they're out of Genesis from the very beginning of how God designed marriage. You add those into your marriage, and I promise you, it'll change. Marriage works 100% of the time when you do it God's way.
I love it. That's very biblical too.
Yeah.
And if it's biblical, then it probably works if we apply that.
Absolutely.
100%. You know, Jesus is coming back for who? It don't say his youth group leader. It don't say the pastor. It says for his bride. That's how nothing will show God and the way the relationship be in a healthy marriage, man. Really in on him. Just the way it is.
Well, that's great advice. What are some better or new ways for couples to communicate with each other without feeling attacked or triggered? Because it can happen.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
You want to take this one?
I think we learned how to approach each other, right? Because we took so many marriage classes and we read so many books and counseling. We learned it's not so much what you say, but how you say it. So anytime, you know, I want to talk to David about an issue, I come at him softly. I'm not trying to attack him. I want him to know how I'm feeling, right? And it's just, hey, can you give me a second of your time? And David, in turn, will turn around and be like, absolutely. And another thing, you know, we'll always ask each other, are you okay? Another thing Jimmy Evans taught us, are you okay? Because that's letting him know, hey, you're my number one human relationship. You are my priority. So if I see, you know, something, David's on the phone, I can see just a look in his face, something's going on, I stop whatever I'm doing. Hey, are you okay? Because I'm interacting with him, right?
It's conflict resolution too. Good marriages have conflict. Absolutely. Good relationships have conflict. If me and you were in business together, we wouldn't sit down at the table and have a P&L profit loss talk and agree about everything. I'd be like, Trav, you got to do this. And you'd be like, well, you ain't doing this, right? And we would have a conflict, but we would find a healthy way to solve the conflict. That was something I never got taught. I never got taught there was 4 laws of love. I thought if you make money, you get cocaine and strippers, and that's how you live life, right? And so
biblical.
I'm just being real, though. You know what I mean? Like, it's right? So I wasn't taught, hey, you know, this is what sex is about, or hey, this is how you love your wife, and hey, you got to do this, and it ain't all about you. And so, and also, I didn't grow up seeing healthy conflict resolution. I mean, the number one thing in a marriage is what? Conflict, right? You know, either in your marriage, you're either face to face, shoulder to shoulder, or back to back. And you know, shoulder to shoulder, Jahnna and I can conquer the world, buddy. You put us to get a task down, but sometimes too much shoulder to shoulder puts us back to back, and we don't have enough face to face intimate. Like, hey, what's going on? Like, you know, and so conflict resolution in our marriage, you know, so maybe there's something, you know, and I'm just using it for instance, like, you know, in our marriage there was infidelity on both sides, bro. So it, you know, it took a lot of years to trust and this and that, and you know. And so, you know, sometimes there's conflicts in a marriage that people can't even talk about without fighting, or somebody stonewalls or browbeats them or whatever. And we had to learn healthy, because we're both strong-willed people. You know what I mean? I thought if you had a conflict, somebody got smacked on either side, right? But, you know, you either smack me or I smack you, or we smack each other, and I lose today, you lose tomorrow. That's just what I thought, how you handle conflict. And there's a thing they do. It's like pushing a beach ball under the water. You can only hold it for so long before it explodes out, right? Well, that was John and I. We went talk about it. I'm like, and this is early on in our recovery, and we're trying to get sober, and we're trying to deal with the past. And I'd be like, I'm not going to talk about it. Last time, boy, it got bad. And we hold it under, and then it exploded, and it was bad. So learning how to have healthy conflict, learning how to empathy. See, I had to start looking at it how Jahnna was. And once I started looking at her and realized God entrusts me, I used to think, gosh, she's accusing me again. Lord have mercy. Right? But she was insecure. And what we started to do was, as time went on, trying to look at each other out of the other one's eyes, we started to heal each other. We started to heal those things that was from childhood and different stuff. So, you know, but to try something new in your marriage, try something new. If you talk about something and it starts an argument, try to look at it different. Say, let me look at it the way Trav looks at it, or your wife looks at it, or whoever. I'm just using you guys for, you know, whatever. But, and that's some big things. But the 4 laws of love, that's the basic. Just go back and start with that.
Yeah, I would say that too, and being very unselfish. You know, it's not keeping record of hey, I did this for you. So
No score.
Yeah, there's no scores. It's just being unselfish, and whatever he needs, I'm going to do it.
Marriage ain't 50-50, bro. Sometimes it's 90-10, 80-20. You know what I mean? Like, you always hear marriage is 50-50. No, nah, some days, nah, man. You know, it's built every day. They're not found. Soulmates aren't found. They're made. You know what I mean?
True. I got to ask these questions, but yeah, Deb's always been the better communicator in this relationship, the more mature one. I would always look to take, and this goes back to like a lot of the root problems, like I was talking about earlier. I take things way too personal. I look for things to like get offended and disrespected by when it's not really like that. Most of the times it's just questions being asked, but I'm like, and then I'm in like attack mode, and accusatory and allegations. Where's this coming from? Oh, you didn't smile at me when I walked by earlier. What's going on? I've made it hard for her to communicate a lot about really serious relationship oriented things that could like hang in the balance of stuff. Like we could talk about tons of stuff, but like the real meat and potatoes of the relationship, I just think like the world is ending. If it's a tough question, I'm like, oh my God, why would you even ask that? And it's gloom and doom. You don't love me no more. I might as well start packing. Like it would be. I don't know how she's made it this far with me. I think I've gotten a little better the last 2 years, just in my own opinion. But we had to put a lot of things out on the table, man, and kind of clear out a lot of clutter that we were keeping from each other. When I came out of rehab 2 years ago and all that, I think things have gotten better, but I don't want to put my stuff in here anymore. I think these questions are awesome. I just want to get them out here for everybody else to hear. Boundaries for each other. What are some of them and why? Any trouble applying them and adhering to them?
There's a lot of when we got back together, our whole thing was found on boundaries. You know what I mean? Everything was linked, and and we called them, oh gosh, I can't think, non-negotiables. We had non-negotiables. Like we don't, go out to eat with the opposite sex by ourselves. If we're on a text message, it's a 4. If it's a husband and a wife, we're on our man and a woman, we're on group text.
We do that.
We don't travel. Us personally, now this doesn't, as some people say, our marriage is weird, and that's cool if they think that, but we started out to make a safety net around our marriage and our family, whatever it took to protect it, and it just became a way of life. You know what I'm saying? And now we don't know any different, and it's fine. But we don't travel without the other one. You know what I'm saying? It's just how it works for us. But boundaries, depending on the person. Your relationship will only be as secure as the most mature person in the relationship. Okay. If you're super insecure in both of you, that's what your relationship's going to be. You know what I mean? And
we used to.
We used to be horrible. So you got to build boundaries. We've got, like I said, that's some of our main ones. You know what I mean? That just started out at the beginning. Now it's just a way of life. You know what I mean? And I'm a man, you're a man, she's a woman. Anybody can fall at any time. Anything can happen. You put yourself in a position, you know what I mean? Billy Graham wouldn't even get on an elevator if a woman was getting in there.
I've heard that.
Just out of the sake for looking, So we take our marriage serious. It takes priority over everything. We don't let nobody disrespect our marriage. We don't let nobody push agendas on our marriage. You know what I mean? And it's Jesus, our marriage, and then everything else. So, I would say boundaries in somebody's marriage, you guys have to sit down and talk about that and see where your struggles, you know what I mean? If a guy's had a problem with cheating or vice versa, then he probably don't want to be on there chatting with people all the time, you know what I mean? Or want to make sure somebody has access to it. Or if a guy has a problem or a girl has a problem, girls do the same thing. It just gets not pointed out as much. But then you build a boundary around it. 72% of couples, you know what the main thing they fight over? Social media. You know what I mean? Social media and the phone right now. That's like the big thing. You know what I mean? Because now when you go on a date, you've got how many people with you when you go on a date? How many people are in that phone? Right? And so it's what, that's some of our boundaries, man. We keep them really tight. We're always together. 85% of the time we work together. We do podcasts together. You know, a guy, I want my wife to be my best friend, not my mom. I don't need a mom. I got a mom, you know. I will tell you the only place Jesus and the 4 laws of love don't work is in the car when I'm driving. But
because he needs a Tesla and I'm going to buy him one because
yeah, she gets mad at me. No, but you know, you got to build the boundaries around what works for your marriage. You know what I mean? You know the pitfalls, and you got to sit down and talk about it. If it's important to you, you'll work on it.
Yeah.
Whatever you feed grows, right? I could look at your YouTube feed and tell what you're into. You know what I'm saying? Right now, I can look at it. At the end of the year, it gives you that report, what the most channels you watched. You know what I mean? It'll tell you what you're into. So you gotta build the boundaries around your relationship. But some people work and they gotta go here and there. They don't spend every day together like we do, you know.
I mean, how would a relationship or marriage last without boundaries?
It wouldn't. It's impossible.
You know? I mean, it's still even a new concept, you know, for me. I've heard about that, but I never even put myself in a position to like put up, you know, boundaries and apply them. But I mean, they're absolutely crucial, I think.
Yeah, even money. That's another boundary I didn't believe. I was always a dude that made my money every day, and nobody needed to know what I had. Jahnna had an insecurity of, because you know, people she had been with would leave her broke and take all the money. So for a long time in our marriage, I would have to be like, here's all the money. I'm not going nowhere. And then as soon as we would fight, she'd be like, I'm closing the bank account, taking all the money. You ain't leaving me. And I'm like, whoa, what are you talking about? I ain't even, but that was an insecurity. You see what I'm saying? And so we had to build a boundary where, you know, now it's, you know, our bank account's our bank account. I can't even understand when people say they have separate bank accounts, but that's just me. I don't understand it because we know we can't spend $50 without the other person asking, because that's one of our non-negotiables in our marriage. If it's going to be more than $50, then she needs to be like, hey, I'm buying the grandbaby. It's going to cost $162. And I'm like, okay, you know, or whatever. But you know, talking about a boundary, that's a money boundary that we all, you know, that she was very insecure about money. And I was like, well, this is my money and that's your money. And so we had to build a boundary where we shared things, you know what I mean? And my goal was, if it made her feel more secure, then I would do it, even though it was something that I was like, this doesn't even make sense to me. You know what I mean? Like, and sometimes in marriage, you're two different people. You know what I mean? Like you guys had two different Thanksgivings growing up. You know what I'm saying? And so you got to learn to do that. But that was a boundary that we used to have to work on.
That's definitely understandable. What's something recent that you both have grown through, and how much did your faith play parts in that? If that's not too open of a question.
Well, my health.
Yeah.
Okay.
My health. Yeah.
I was thinking that. You want to talk about that some, Dave?
Yeah. You know, I try not to put it on. I had to do a blanket statement at the beginning because we were canceling. You know, we were booked up for 2 months straight, and you know, I felt me, you know, taking so many years for people to gamble on me again, and I'll probably get a little teary eyed thinking about this. I felt like I was letting a lot of people down. Like, man, we've got all these, you know, ministering events and people are counting on us, and I got to come back and cancel on them. What if they, you know, Satan started playing the imposter syndrome with me? What if they think I'm doing this or I'm lying or what, you know what I mean? So, but just to put it in a nutshell, you know, it's one thing to speak Christianese and talk all this. I trust God and God can do this and do this. And then when you really have to do it, you know what I mean? And so we were on the road. I had been, you know, 2 years ago, I lost 100 and some odd pounds. And then doing DDPY yoga, man, shout out to DDP, but I started doing it, and then we started working out, and it became a life change to me, man. We were doing some powerlifting, and I was getting, you know, swolled up, and I've always been a bigger dude, you know what I mean? But so I you know, I lost it working out, and John and I were on the road, and I was just really tired, man. And, you know, and she was like, you all right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm just tired. We've been going on. We were ministering and seeing lives God was doing some awesome work. Our lives were getting changed just as much as the people, man. It was nothing like seeing it. And we got back home and we were home and I was really tired. We were supposed to be home for a week and a half. And then we were going to be on the road again. And I ended up waking up in the middle of the night with chest pains real bad. Went to the hospital. Long story short, I had an aneurysm on my aorta. My aorta is 4 times enlarged. I only have 2 valves where there should be 3. I've got a leaky valve, and my infraction rate is 38%. My heart, pushing back, and the doctor was basically like, "You don't lift pool tables anymore. You're not traveling. This is, serious." So we put all that in. If you hear some whining, that's my dog in there crying that she's 200 pounds, crying like she's a chihuahua. But anyway, so I got sidelined and we had to go and cancel it. So I haven't really been online talking too much about it. I'll say something on the podcast because I don't want to be a guy that gets on there like, went to the doctor again, and then you learn something. Medical insurance isn't important until you need it. And,
Sure.
and the medical insurance, that's a whole nother rant. You know what I mean? So now they put you on all these pills and say, hey, don't be stressed. You can't lift pool tables. That's how you make money. And you got to take all these pills to make your heart better, but it's about $2,000 a month, And so I'll be honest, man, the last, what has it been since September? 4 or 5 months, bro. I've been an emotional roller coaster, bro. One day I wake up like, man, I'm gonna take this head on. I'm healed. And then, to get in the doctor, it's not like I'm the only guy with a heart problem in Florida. You know what I'm saying? And so to get in the doctor, then you got to see this specialist. You got to do this. And then they were going to replace my aorta, which is a major surgery, ain't like I had stents or, bypass. They're going to have to replace it. Yeah. Then I went to specialists and they did tell me this. They said, you're one of a kind. I was like, well, they've been telling me that my whole life. Right. But they said, we've never seen an aorta like yours in our life, in our practice. Yeah. So we want to study you. But basically, I looked at it as a specialist, said, I ain't never seen nothing like this. I don't want to cut you open. I'm scared. But he said every year that my aorta is in me, my life expectancy goes. Because once they replace that, then it can be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, right? I'm 52 years old, So leading up to all this, I'm saying all that to say this, Jahnna was having to deal with my emotional roller coaster, what I'm saying? Up and down. And, one day I'm going to take on the world. The next day I didn't want to get out of bed. And then I'm weak. And then now I'm feeling like less of a man. I'm a dude who carries 1,000 pounds around 3 times a day. Now you're telling me I can't go to the gym and I can't lift a jug of milk. Like, and how am I going to support my family? And I got grandbabies coming. I'm like, am I going to be around? Like, it's been so say all that. We finally got into the specialist and back and forth. And they said, listen, we're not going to do surgery right now, risk versus reward, because every year that it's in there, we're going to monitor you. We're going to study you. You got to come back every month and take these pictures, but go live your life. But your heart. And then they got into they said, now the aorta is one thing, but yeah, my aneurysm. Then he said, but let's talk about drug usage. He said, the aorta is something you were born with. But you've done cardiovascular damage to your heart that might not ever be repaired. Because when I tell you I did it. You know what I'm saying? And so now I start playing this mind game. You're not going to be around to walk your daughter down the aisle. You're going to be your grandkids because you did this, this, and this, And I really had to come to a part to say, either I get on here and I preach all this stuff and I post all this stuff and I say these positive things and I'm trusted in God and I'm on here, or do I really? And so I can say, we've had to draw closer. There's been some days where John was like, whoa, you're talking to me the wrong way, buddy. Yeah. I don't know who you're going off on and taking this out on, but this isn't how we do this. And
I've heard that myself.
Yeah. And so it's been a trying 4 or 5 months. And man, I'll be honest, I don't want to take no shots, but Christians, people can be mean sometimes. And, there was some, I've gotten different texts and people saying, well, you ain't, you look good on Facebook. You know what I'm saying? Like, your picture looks good. You ain't that sick or whatever. Oh yeah, man, we deal with all that. But I'm like, social media is 2 minutes of a 24-hour day. Yep. You see a picture, a post to try to help somebody else. Usually what we're going through, we're people who post transparent posts. If you see it, I'm usually walking through it or just walk through it. Right. I'm not a dude who's like, hey, I'm going to use this and do this. This is real life stuff that we're walking through. And, so that's something of late, our marriage, our family, our kids, finances, ministry, everything went And we're still not. I mean, nothing's changed, bro. My heart's still 38%. I still feel weak, but I trust God, man, that, I'm healed. I've been saying 100 times a day, your heart's healed, so we'll walk in it. But it's real life, serving Jesus ain't always feathered hair and flip flops. You know what I'm saying? Like we're going through it. You know what I mean? And that's something I'm walking through right now, knowing that I got an aneurysm that if, something could happen and, I got this, and I don't feel 100% all the time. I get up, I wake up every morning at 2:00 in the morning. Don't ask me why, but, and I'm up and I'm thinking this, and I'm like, and then by 11 o'clock, I'm ready to go back to bed, bro. You know what I mean? I'm like, used to, I'd go work all day and do whatever, so.
I think something very important for us is that we had some really great mentors.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime I would get in my feelings and have fear, because I'm not going to lie to you and say that never happened, because there were times where I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to have to do? What if this happens? What if David gets the surgery and something goes wrong? It's like you want to prepare, but at the same time, you're human and you have fears, and they would just lift us up, and help us with our faith. And man, I can't say enough about that, because we're all mentors. Human. Yeah, we're all human, and you're going to fall into your flesh sometimes. So you need accountability. Everybody does. I don't care who you are, to have somebody that's going to lift you up, give you some scriptures, give you some sound word, and pray with you, and walk with you through it. So thank God we have that.
Yeah, we like mentors that challenge us, man. We don't like yes mentors.
No.
We've got pastors and people in our life that keep it real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think everybody should have that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's people that genuinely care, like they're reflecting Christ by doing it.
No motive, right?
You don't have to question. That's just who they are now.
That's it. That's in their DNA.
And the thing is about that, the whole situation is you find out who's really in your corner and who isn't.
100%.
Real fast.
Yeah.
Because God moves in this situation. God never moves just for one thing. It's always, a ripple effect of so many other reasons. So God's also kind of like, removing the tear, the wheat and the tear type of deal. Because there's people that's going to be like you thought, had your back for years, and now might question you and all this stuff. And so God's removing certain people using this situation. And the real thing is that made me think of, that really got me thinking was something you said a while ago, but specifically, this might not have been, or still is in many ways, a test for you, but a chance for you to prove who you say you really are.
Yeah.
And that's not so easy, because like you said, you're up.
Oh man, it's easy to say it. It's easy to say it.
Yeah.
It's different when you got to walk it out, man. When you're laying there watching the ceiling fan, you know what I mean, at 2:00 in the morning, like, but you know what I will say, I believe this with 100%, that we serve a miracle God. He's still in the miracle working business. He's still saving. He's still restoring. We're products of it. And when I look back at my life, when I see how many things God has already brought me out of and delivered me in different times, there's no way I could doubt him. And also, man, there's something I adopted. Even if God heals me miraculously, even if I have to get surgery, or even if I just ride this out till I ride it out, I'm going to serve God and know that his will is going to be done, and he's operating behind the scenes. Sometimes God will part the Red Sea immediately, and sometimes God will give you tools to build a boat and you float around a little bit. You know what I mean? And you got to learn. And so, really, it's drawn us closer as a husband and wife. It hasn't been easy. I don't want to tell you every day we were like, because there's days I was not a nice person. I was mad at myself. I even got mad at God for a minute. Like, really? Again? I'm on the break of it. Are you kidding me? And he's like, who's this about, me or you, David? Who's this about, me or you? Is this about you going places and telling your story? Or is this about you going places and me showing my glory? Like, what's it about? And so even that, you know what I mean? So I always know another thing. Sometimes, he's got to slow us down because we think this was going to be it, but really he has this over here. So, I'm just, we're here. We're focusing on music, man. We're focusing on our marriage class. We're focusing on doing some training, man. We're never, when you stop, stop learning, you stop growing, bro. So we're forever taking new marriage classes, learning stuff, relearning stuff. New trainings, new music, man. We've been making some bangers, man. So we're just here doing our thing, man.
I love that. I mean, so it's not prevented you or stopped you or lessened any love you have for reflecting Christ and being selfless for people. Nothing in this life is granted or guaranteed.
Nope.
What? And no matter what whatever he's going to do with this, he's going to do with it. He's going to guide the doctor's hands if there's a surgery.
Yep.
He's going to be there for you if this has to just be a thing for years to come. So, and he could heal you. He could heal you tomorrow. You can go for a checkup, and they'd be like, "Hey, you're all good." Well, that's what God does, and He shouldn't even.
And that's what we're believing. That's what we're believing, and we believe and pray that, and God said it, so that's it. And I don't, it's like a lot of people, the bad story is better, right? When you watch a movie, you're always rooting. You want to. If you watch a bank robbing movie, maybe Jesus needs to work on me, but I want to see the dude get away robbing the bank. You know what I mean? I'm like, come on, man, go, or whatever. But the bad story is always better, right? It's all they quote unquote, and so people want to hear the bad, to where like they're like, well, man, what's going on? To where I quit talking about it. I'm like, I'm not going to keep confessing this because your words matter. And once you wake up, and Satan don't know your thoughts. He don't know what you're thinking. It's when you say something, he can grab a hold of it, and that's when it does it. So I started, Pastor Gasper, man, he just preached a sermon called "Change Your Words, Change Your Life," and that's what I live by. And he was like, quit speaking it out. Say 100 times a day, "My heart's healed, my heart's healed, my heart's healed." Quit talking about it. Quit rehearsing the story to everybody. If you're telling it on your podcast or you're talking, that's one thing. But quit talking about it. And I found myself, well, yeah, I'm not doing good. You know what I mean? Like, and I was caught up in it, bro. You know what I mean? Like, and that's not to say every day I feel good, because you got to give yourself time to be human. There's some days that she's like, hey, guys, Dad's not feeling good. He needs to rest today. You know what I'm saying? Like, and used to, I'd be like, well, I got to be up and I got to go do this, and my blood pressure's through the roof, and I got to go. Now I'm like, hey, I'll get with you when I can, man. You know what I mean? And that's it. But God's good, bro, and we stand on Him. We're founded on the rock, and we believe that it's going to be a healing, and that's where we're at.
And one good thing I have to give kudos to David is he focuses so much on helping other people. From the time he gets up at 2 a.m, he's sending out devotionals. He's typing up things for people to encouragement to send them. So I think that has really helped David, that he's so in tune with the Holy Spirit and helping other people and not getting stuck in his own world, that keeps him out there and keeps him pushing hope. So I'm super proud of him for that.
So you remain relentless no matter what.
Yeah.
Well, the name, you said that when we were going to go to save our marriage, I said, listen, everything starts with some hope, and I got hope in us. I don't want to be a statistic. Jahnna was the first relationship I didn't want to lose. Yeah, I know that sounds horrible, and I'm sure,
I think
if any of my exes see this, I'm sorry. I'm not saying I didn't love people at some time or what I thought love was, but she was the first relationship that I said, I don't want to be a statistic. I don't know how we're going to bounce back from this, and I said, and I told her one time we were going to go, we were driving in the car. I can remember where we were at. And I said, this is going to take us some hope, and we're going to have to be relentless with it. And that was where the name was born, Relentless Hope. And even our logo has a cross at the top and an anchor at the bottom. And that's the way I had the guy design it, because we have to look up to Jesus and we have to be anchored. And I'm a dude that can sway real fast, bro, if I'm not anchored. So,
I can relate to that. Well, I'm gonna continue to pray for you, man.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to share your updates and your journey with this
now
and then. I mean, to be transparent with it, like you have been with everything else, because there might be somebody out there that's got the same kind of condition that's going through it too.
Yeah.
You're right.
They might be hopeless, so then you got to sever off a little bit of your hope for them. So
that's true, man.
Every once in a while, just let people know where you're at. You know, and prayers work. It's the faith of others, as we've read in the Bible a ton of times. The faith of others is what healed a lot of people. Like the guy, his friends lowered him through the roof on that mat.
Yeah,
and Christ was like, "Well, the faith of your friends, pick up your mat and walk home." And, so the more people praying for you, that's genuinely concerned with you. I mean, that can only help. I mean, without other people's prayers, I wouldn't be here.
None of it.
Man.
Prayers for myself, I don't know if they really necessarily got answered, but even when things went down a couple years ago, and my wife had every reason in the world to hate me, leave me, not talk to me again, she still said some prayers for me, and we kind of came to the conclusion that like certain things worked out with these connections I had with God, these experiences that I think were directly related because of how faith-filled she was and how trusting of God that she was and committed to this relationship. And I owe her a lot for praying for me to even get me here to be able to talk to people like you. And you can't get me to unthank that. You know, once you cross over to like, that's well, then you can't unbelieve something.
That's right. That's right.
Here's this is interesting to me. I have to ask, any shared triggers and how do you handle them together?
Any shared triggers?
Yeah.
Kids, older kids, sometimes one of our kids, she's a little wild, she's doing good now, but she would show up and it would kick it all off, man. Chaos, you know. And you know, she's doing great now, but she would that would be a shared trigger for
now we
us.
got a young one that he's kind of taking that.
Yeah, he's kind of taking that role now. But you know, I don't know. I mean, I think now, I'm not saying that we've got it all figured out, but we've been through so much since we've been clean. We lost everything in a hurricane, custody battles out the yin yang, lost both of our dads, you know, had a lot of things happen, personal, medical. It's like we've got to the part where we take those things and we utilize them and let the other person. This comes to the marriage thing, knowing your role in marriage. There's some things Jahnna's super strong at that I'm super weak at, and there's some things I'm super strong at. So what we've had to learn in our marriage, it's like a battle plan. I'm like, all right, we're going through this now. And before, I wouldn't even let her step up and handle that because I'm the man. And now I let her. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of things that at one time early on would have been triggers that now we kind of turn them into strengths, bro. I know that sounds, and I don't want to sit here and say like we're super people or nothing, but we've learned what works. You know what I mean? And all that came from getting healthy. It came from getting healthy, man. I believe Christians, we don't talk about mental illness enough. And mental health. You know, we say, "Oh, you got a demon on you, boy. You ain't believing enough." Or, "Hey, you need to don't take that medicine." Well, hey, there was physicians in the Bible. You know what I mean? Luke was so like, you know, there's some things that are once you get those repaired, and you said it earlier about dumping the cup. I had to fool my toolbox back up with other tools. And how did I do that? Watching a message, going to a class, finishing a thing. And then I started putting my toolbox back in that eliminated it, where before at the bottom, I still had trauma or whatever you want to call it. And that would trigger, you know what I mean? So I believe triggers are just broken tools.
Yep. That's a very, very insightful way to look at that. I like that. I got a couple more for you, and I'm going to try to keep this under 2 hours. What's been the biggest, most revealing thing you've learned about yourselves and each other in this whole journey?
I think the biggest thing that's revealed to me in this journey is how important it is for a husband to be a spiritual leader for his wife. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize what a leader I was, and how Jahnna looked at me spiritually, how important it is to try to empower other men and try to show them what God showed me and what I've learned of how important it is to pray with your wife, to be the one that, hey, you know, we're going to a marriage conference
Yeah. And for me, it would be that we're a team, everything we do is together, whether it be work, ministry, music, we're teammates, and we are way better together than we are separate. So I thank God for David. I know that he brought him in my life for a reason.
And this has been, I have so much more, but I think I would take up another hour of your guys' time.
Yeah, we'll have to do, hey, we're going to have you on ours, and we'll come back again, and you know what I mean, and talk, and
Yeah, anytime. I mean, there's other things that, I'm just curious. I have one last question, and then I want you guys to give some advice, encouragement to the listeners, but we'll end it kind of on a funny one. What are some things that annoy you about each other?
Oh,
there's got to be something.
This girl's so hard-headed, bro.
There's not either.
This girl is so hard-headed. You know what annoys me? It's like one day my buddy goes, "You don't even open the door for your wife." I go, "Do you know my wife? I don't need you to open my door." We're trying to buy something at Lowe's, and she's carrying it down, and everybody's looking at me like this fat lazy mom, right? And but that's one thing about her that comes from her dad. Not, kind of being hard on her. You don't need to do that for me. And sometimes I want to be like, baby, I'm just trying to be a man here. Now, that's one thing that I admire about her too. Yeah. How strong-willed she was and tough she was one of my main attractions. But then that's one of the things I'm like, sometimes let me handle this. You know what I'm saying? That annoys me sometimes, Yeah. Right? Or here's another one. Here's one. But I'm just saying what we're doing is like, Jahnna has to help everybody at every time. Anybody that knows her. Like, you don't work at Walmart. Why are we picking trash up in the place right now? Like, she does that, which is integrity, and she does it. But buddy, I'm trying to get into Lehigh. I'm like, I'm already going to stand in line to lose my Christianity. So I don't need to let him, hey, buddy, get over here and pick up the trash. You work here, But that's a great quality, but it drives me nuts when I'm trying to get in Walmart.
One of mine would be we turn the TV on at 2 a.m.
Easy.
Listen, it drives me nuts for a minute. I'll get mad for a second, and then when I realize what he's putting on, which is like a sermon or something to help him with calming his anxiety, I'm like, how could I even be mad at him? So I just pull the cover over my head.
She's like, please, David.
I'm like, keep turning that down, baby.
I'm like, you need to listen to this. What's what Jesus did?
I'm like, I am while I'm sleeping.
And that's simple stuff, right?
Yes, yeah.
But yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things I probably do. I'm a slob. I know I drive her nuts. My wife is like the I can take this shirt off and throw it down. It'll be in the washing machine and clean in my closet before I get back in there. You know what I mean? And but that's it. But she drives me nuts when I'm driving. Because but then she's driving, she puts on GPS, she's born and raised here. I'm like, well, you gonna tell me where to go?
This is gonna check me out, and I'm trying to get there the fastest way possible. Listen, a lot of times it'll be like when I have to get them to the hospital.
Hey, let me tell you
I'm
this,
like, bro. I'm trying to get there. I can't think because I'm stressed out.
We're gonna end it on a funny note right here, okay? I'm having chest pains, bro. Don't hire this girl to be your ambulance driver, Trav, if you need her to get there. So I'm having chest pains. She's like, come on, we got to go. I'm like, oh, man, I don't want to go. We get in the car. I didn't want to go. This is after I'd been in the hospital. She put in there. We put it on there. We get it on there. She puts in a GPS. Now, I'm not trying to argue, right?
But you are.
But she's already. I should have argued more. But so we're driving, and she's going the wrong way. I go, this ain't the way to the hospital. It's like GPS. I want to go straight there. You just need to be quiet. And I said, you know what, God? I'm going to practice humility right now. I'm not going to say nothing. This girl drives all the way to a whole nother town not to the hospital. I'm like, it was a town. Yeah, I was like, I'm glad I don't know him, but that's like stuff that we were really kind of. Well, I was having tests, so I didn't want to argue about it. I'm like, she's like, why didn't you tell me? I'm like, you're the ambulance. But anyway, hey, our marriage is real, man. We live it real, bro.
I figured she was just looking for Walmarts to get out and do a lot sweep.
Hey, shoot, buddy. She'll push the carts in, trash. She's over there washing people's windows, changing tires in the back, stocking the shelf. Going
well, I'm glad she finally got you there eventually.
Yeah, she did. She did.
All right, let me do this last one, and then some advice and encouragement for everybody. Both of you. Define your relationship with God in one sentence.
Obedience, surrender, submission, and praise.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I would have to say filled with grace, mercy, and humility.
Beautiful. You guys have been fantastic. I'm glad
it's been fun.
Yes.
Thank you so much for rescheduling that.
Hey,
I'm so happy to see that day you hit me up and said, "Hey, I'm good. Let's do it." I appreciate you guys so much. There's so much more I want to talk about. I haven't even really got to everything.
Yeah, we got a lot.
Yeah, I did though. I appreciate everything you guys
shared. You did good, man. You did good. Hey, we're not easy to navigate. Sometimes we can go sideways. So you did good, man.
I appreciate it. I thank you guys so much. Just a little bit of advice and encouragement for everybody, and pray us out. I like to keep these under 2 hours, just out of respect for the guests, and also StreamYard clips up the interview, so I'll get like a cool 45-second or a minute clip, and I can share them out and stuff. So
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I'd say what, man. No matter what you're going through, keep going through it. It don't matter how you start the race; it's how you finish the race. Sometimes we think that the storm is happening and we miss God, and sometimes you're right there with God in the middle of the storm, because most people, when they climb a mountain, they don't die on the way up the mountain. They die on the way down the mountain because they never planned to climb back down. They only trained to climb up it. So whatever you're going through right now, you're not forgot about. You're not messed up too much. No matter what you've done, God's still right there, and he'll leave the 99 to come and get the one. Because if he did it for us, he'll do it for anybody, and that's 100% facts.
It's good stuff.
Yep.
That is good stuff. Could I get let me ask Jahnna, you want to pray us out?
Sure, I would love to. All right, you guys ready?
Yeah.
Heavenly Father, I thank you, dear Jesus. I thank you for this time. I thank you for this platform. I thank you for Trav's heart for wanting to share with people and to build hope and to let people know that you're the answer, Father God. It's not all these other things that we all try to fill a void, dear Jesus, but you're the healer, you're the redeemer, Father. And I thank you for all that you're doing in all our lives, dear Jesus. I pray that none of this falls on deaf ears, Father God. I pray that people will take this and listen to what we said, and that your glory shines through, Father God, that you are the reason. And I thank you for all that you're doing in all our lives. And I pray that you bless Travis, his ministry, and him and his wife's relationship, Father God. And I thank you for all you're doing in all our lives. And we love you, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Man,
all right, my man. We thank you, bro.
You guys
we'll be in touch.
My wife said she wants one of those shirts. I'm not sure which one she's talking about. Probably the Relentless Hope shirt.
Oh, we got. Well, you let us know.
Yeah,
you send what your guys' size are and what you want. We'll send it out to you. But we love you, bro. We're gonna go watch the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Hey, thank you guys so much, everybody that's listening and watching. This has been David and Jahnna Cravens from Relentless Hope. Support them all you can. They're good people, man. Thank you guys. You guys are off the spot. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
We appreciate you, bud. We'll talk to you soon.
Awesome, man. Take care. God bless.
All right, bye.